Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome. It's been a while since I've live streamed. Today is election day if you are in the United States. So hopefully you have gone out and done your duty of voting in the election. And hopefully you are not allowing it to soil any relationships that you have with people. I, like many entrepreneurs, it's that time of year where we have to figure out, okay, where are we? Where are we going? And what's coming next? So a part of that is always updating and refreshing the website. And one thing that I'm refreshing is the about page that really describes who I am, what I do, how I can help other entrepreneurs, and really, I am someone in my business, it has always been very intentional in terms of how I show up, what I learn how to do, and all of that. Of course, we're enjoying lunch. Let's see who's that. Oh, Senator Bulworth, long time. Hello, hello from that's my virtual hug for you, all the way from Baltimore. Thank you for joining in. So, the reason I am doing this video is many of you know I currently have four brands. Count them up: one, two, three, four. And there has been a common thread that has flowed throughout each and every one of them. Did I say my name? I'm Zakia Ringgold, just in case I have not said that. But you're watching me on something that says Zakia Ringgold, but you might not have known how to actually pronounce that. So there you go. And so as I was looking at it, it became very, very clear that there was a common thread: technology, training, community, live streaming that constantly flows throughout everything that I have done across Natural Soap by Zakia, Live Soap School, Virtual Experience Design Agency, and my latest and greatest creation of Business Tech Lab. And so, as I was trying to really tell the story of the entrepreneurial journey, luckily, and here's a tip, I'm also going to include tips in here for all of you too. No matter where you are, especially if you are just getting started, it is going to be imperative that you capture the journey as you go for several reasons. One of those reasons is to be able to see exactly where you have come from and those things that you probably said and kind of go off to the side because maybe you didn't put as much stock in it, which is why we're actually doing this video today. And so it's really, really important, even if it's not something that you're going to share with people. I highly recommend that you capture what you are doing in some form or fashion, whether that be video, maybe recording voice notes on your phone, any of those things, because you can always refer back to that later. Now, what brings us here, you ask? Well, I will tell you. So I titled this about how my early learning and development and training experiences really shaped a lot of what I'm doing in entrepreneurship right now. And the way I stumbled on that is as I was building out the timeline for my business, I had to start out with where I came from because I didn't jump into entrepreneurship. I started in corporate America. I worked 17 years in the corporate space building online training as well as in person training. And I have always been fortunate to have really supportive managers that saw stuff in me that I probably didn't see in myself. I also experienced things that weren't as positive in corporate America, but for the most part, I have always had people who have seen that, hey, she has a talent and we're going to invest in that talent. And one of my trainings that I had, because not only was I developing the training, I also had to do professional development as an employee. And this was in 2017. So, about 2 years after I had stumbled on live streaming and saw the power of being able to connect with people, learn, grow, share, all of those things. And I'm sorry if your comments aren't coming up. Feel free to keep putting them up there. I will make sure to circle back and respond to them. But that'll kind of be good for the repurpose if I don't see your comments. And so 2 years into building or learning about live streaming, I was actually enrolled in a training within the hospital. And this is while I was working full time. And that training was on presenting to groups. How can we get better at it? And it was a 4-day class. And over that time, we learned about how to present to groups and how to appear more professional. But a part of that was creating a presentation on an idea that you had for your department. Now, mind you, I am calling out these years because 2017 was 3 years prior to the pandemic. And I've been working with several business coaches along the way because I am somebody who does struggle with the imposter syndrome, the why me kind of thing, and all of that. Or am I good enough? Am I smart enough? And we'll get to that because you are absolutely all of those things. It is a constant work in progress, constant. However, one thing that has become clear as I work through that is I have always been ahead of the curve. Before it was broadly embraced by other people, before it was signed off on, hey, this is a good idea, I was already implementing so many things, but I took it for granted, right? It was just like, oh, that's just the way my brain works. I didn't see it for the gold that it was, Ringgold, right? I didn't see it for those things. So what I'm appreciating about having to go through this for my new website is really ironing out, how did this entrepreneurial journey take shape? It was not an overnight thing. It does continue to evolve, but it was always and continues to be. Hello, Zakia. Let me see who's saying hi. It's so small. Claudia from the YouTube side. How you doing? How you doing? Now, I will tell you that this was supposed to land on LinkedIn. I don't know if it actually did. I don't see it. That's really who this crowd is for because they need to know it. But for my YouTube and my Facebook people, thank you for tuning in. And so I am someone who says you have to show me before I will believe it. I have to actually know or have implemented it before I'm going to turn around and say, hey, this is a good idea. You should try doing this for your business, or you should try doing this in your particular space. Now, let me see. Is it actually here too? Yes, it is. Great. And there are comments and they're not coming up. Lenore is here. Hello, Lenore. How are you? All right. So I'm going to have my Facebook people on the phone because, this multi-streaming ain't multi-streaming the way it's supposed to. All right. And so as I was doing that, so I keep saying that, but I'm not getting to the crux of it. So come on, get on with it. I started going into my archives. Every live stream that I have ever created, I have that in a cloud storage. But when I was in corporate for that workshop that I attended, they actually recorded our presentation and I found the presentation. So it's about 12 minutes. So depending on what your timeline is, I want you to stick around and I want you to watch that because all of that I said then, I did not implement it in corporate America, but it's exactly how I approach everything that I do for all of my businesses. And I want you to take some lessons away from this. If there's one main lesson, I want to hear about it in the chat, but I have some thoughts that I want to share with you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open that video up. I'm going to play it. I'm going to mute my microphone so we don't get feedback. And you all let me know what you think. All right, so I'm here today to really discuss decreasing our training costs and improving the learner experience overall. But before I do that, I want you guys to think about when you are at home and you are and let me back up for a second. I'm probably going to read your mind with this next question. I think I have the answer, but we will find out. When you are at home and you are attempting to learn something, where do you go?
My phone.
Google, internet. Where at? If you want to watch a video for something to see how
YouTube.
Haha. 50 points, Alex. I knew you would say that. you do a YouTube video because there's something for you to watch, for you to see. You can follow it step by step. When you want to know what others think about something, do you typically go to Amazon reviews, Facebook if you're on Facebook, or LinkedIn to find out what other people think? So when it comes to in the workplace, where do you go? You go to those same kind of tools?
Your colleagues.
Colleagues, you may go to your colleagues. SOPs. But why don't we incorporate any of these elements in our learning and development programs? Why do we put people in a classroom and just hope that it serendipitously sticks, but we don't use and leverage what they're currently using already outside of the workplace? So I want you guys to think about that as we talk about what we're going to cover in terms of a new experiential model for professional development. We're going to talk about what some of those key components are, the benefits of it, some recommended pilot programs, and what's really needed for us to move forward. And I am hoping that by the end of this presentation, you understand some of the advantages of this new model so that we can decrease our training costs and improve the learner experience. So when I mention experiential, and we can call it EL, because I'll probably slaughter it for the remainder of this, it's a different kind of model, and the thing that makes it so different is it's learner-centered. It puts the learner at the center of the event and not the classroom activity. So we got to get these butts in the seats. We got to have people coming to the class. We start with thinking about what the learner actually needs in order to be successful and have a true change in behavior. There's a learning event life cycle that we're considering with this, where it's not just that classroom, but it's that thing that happened or those activities that happen before the person even shows up. Those things that happen when the exercise or the training event is occurring. And then all of those things that we wrap around the learner at the end that ensure that they're supported, they have the resources that they need, and ultimately have an experience that's going to change behavior. Yes.
Well, how the heck do we monitor this? Because if I got people sitting in a classroom, I know their butts are in the seats and they're there and they're not messing around. And if they're off being learner-centered, how do I know that they're actually doing anything?
Well, we still get their butts in the seats. So we're not taking them out of the seats. So that's a really thought-provoking question. I was trying not to say good question. That's a thought-provoking question. So it's including additional experiences outside of the classroom. We know that learning happens in the classroom, but the expression of that learning happens in the workplace. So how do we support them once they leave the classroom? Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Great. So we're also going to talk about some of those multiple touch points. That's what we were leading up to encourage that behavior change. And how do we build out a supportive online community for our staff that's spread out across all of the various buildings that we have? So let's talk about the learning and life cycle, because there is those things that happen before training, those things that happen during the actual training, and then those things that happen after. So before somebody is even coming into a classroom, we want them to think, I'm not being dragged there, I know what to expect when I get there, and what are some of those key aspects that I expect to learn. So before any training, we would be setting those expectations. We would be sending out pre-work so that they have a consistent experience every single time. So if they need to read articles, that would automatically be delivered to them. They would also get some level setting. We would hear, what did other people who have come to that training experience as a result of that training? Once they actually get into the training, they're in the classroom. They're doing what they normally do. So none of your programs would actually change for what's happening in the classroom. It's those support systems that's happening around it. They would also always be required to have some kind of action plan, even if that means they're talking to their manager about what has happened. They're also going to talk about what are those things that they want to do within the week, within the month, or within the next 6 months that we can then track back to and be able to see, are we making a difference with our training? And then additionally, we would encourage them to have accountability partners, somebody that they could talk to after the class who's going through the same thing that they are, where they can continue to talk about the experience so it doesn't end in the classroom. We continue to extend that after the training with online communities. We all have access to SharePoint, so we could leverage our SharePoint communities to continue that discussion. If we find resources or articles that are relevant to the training that they just attended or those skills, then we could post them on the community and encourage people to have those discussions as well. We could leverage our Adobe webinar solution so that we could have accountability check-ins just to see how everybody's doing with the content. And these would be completely optional, but it's a way to keep those cohorts together as well as our open enrollment sessions for similar topics. One thing that a lot of staff complain about is sometimes they'll go back after a training and their manager says nothing about the training. It's more of the same. They're not expecting them to do anything different as a result of going to the training. So with this, we are recommending that we implement manager toolkits, which would really help for when a learner goes back out of their training class. They say the manager automatically gets this sent to them via the learning management system, and it tells them how they can support their employee that just came back from this training. Yes.
Well, I am one of those managers. I have 12 people on my team.
Mm-hmm.
I also have a full-time job in addition to managing those 12 people. And so it sounds like now you want me to monitor what they learned after I don't have time for that.
Well, it wouldn't be monitoring them. The idea is you're already having canned one-on-one sessions as part of the CHOP performance philosophy.
I am.
Well, we have a course for you. If you don't, the idea is this would be another tool that you would leverage during those one-on-one sessions so that you are showing that you're invested in your employees' continuous development and that they didn't just go to a class and you're not recognizing it. Yes.
So do you have the same, I'm also a manager, and I wanted to see if you also had the same structure at the end with the manager toolkit in the beginning. How do you know you're sending your people to the right classes?
That's a great question. I didn't consider that, but it sounds like it's something that we should include. So it would be a decision tree for should my employee even go to this class. I'll add that to our parking lot. And Ahema, I think you had a question as well.
Yes. I think it was the after. So you're saying that the manager should ask the employee about the training, how it went, what they learned, how they think their job might be different, but basically when you normally meet with your staff, right? We should ask them those questions?
Yes.
Okay. Because I think you're right. I don't know that I've ever been to a training and my manager said how was my job going to change as a result of it?
Yeah.
It's been a long time since someone asked me that question.
And it's not that their job has to change, but it's how can you leverage those skills that they just
learned. Okay.
acquired. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
So we don't have time, unfortunately, for this entire session, but some of the components of leveraging the online learning community in particular is we are encouraging a two-way discussion. It's not just the program manager that's responsible for sending that content down. And if we think back to that beginning, when you're asking for questions, where do people go? They go to Facebook and LinkedIn. So this isn't a new behavior that we're asking our employees to embrace. We're leveraging what they're already doing outside of the workplace anyway. And then it's also a central repository. Yes.
So I had a question. So I've been here at CHOP for 35 years, and back when I started, we used, books and paper, and I'm not really sure about this whole internet thing and logging on and, face space and all that stuff. I'm not really sure. I mean, do we have anything for people like me that don't go on this internet?
Absolutely. This is just one component. So you also have the paper. We're not getting rid of paper because I love my paper just as much as the next person. But this is for, it's an extension of what people are experiencing outside of the workplace for those that are comfortable to be able to leverage those
Okay.
tools and not say that the learning stops in the classroom. Face, I'm gonna write that one down. That's a good one. Any other questions? So by us leveraging this, we would be using it for program marketing through announcements of the next class, what people have said on their surveys, some video testimonials, digital media resources. So we would also be including pictures, video, podcasts, all of those different things. So it's engaging and it invites people to come into the community as well. And announcements and reminders for our monthly synchronous coaching. If you have coaching as one of the aspects that you're doing for your current programs, this would be a way for you to keep people reminded, because the last thing that people want is to miss those or just say they didn't remember or didn't know. So we do have some recommended pilot programs that we would like to start with, and we would like for you to make a recommendation for one of your programs that you think would fit this model. So we have the influencing performance through feedback, we have performance management, and then we also have presenting with impact as 3 possible ones. And the idea behind these being the ones is, even though people may not come to these classes, the topics are broad enough where the resources could be leveraged by people across the organization. So it's just another way for us to market what the value of what it is that we're doing. So some of the next steps, because before I close, I do want to make sure that we clearly understand that this is a pilot program to begin with, to understand which programs are going to make sense, how it's going to impact our learners, the managers, and then the various systems that are going to be impacted. So before I close, what questions do you have?
What if you have users that can't physically be at this location, yet they still want to be able to participate in the trainings? And if they don't have, if they're brand new to the company, they might not have a laptop or a computer or the necessary tools that they need. Are you going to provide that during the training if it's needed?
I think that's a parking lot item, and only because that's beyond my ability to make a decision, but I think you bring up a really good point in terms of accessibility for everyone, no matter where they are in their access to resources. But I do want to add one thing. This is not about replacing the way that we currently do instructor-led training. That has its place in the way that our students are, or our learners are actually getting the information. So we do want them to actually physically show up. This is about the support around those events as well. But they could attend remotely, if it makes sense. So a couple of hands. Okay, so I hope that you now understand some of the advantages of our new experiential learning model, so that we can decrease training costs and also improve what the learner experience is. And I'd ask that you would identify 1 or 2 potential programs that you currently have, and we'll get started on planning your pilot. There I am. Sorry, guys. All right. So, if you missed the beginning of this, first of all, Lucy, so glad to have you. I know it's been a while. You are one of the day one A1s from the early days of live streaming. So, what we're doing on this episode is I am building out a brand new website that kind of ties all of my businesses together in the common thread. And a part of that is building out a timeline of entrepreneurship and how all four of my brands have kind of blossomed over time. And what I have found is that it started way before I was a business owner. And what I was sharing in that video was a part of what we're doing for the timeline is just looking back through all of the experiences I had. And that video that you all were just watching was from a professional development workshop that I attended while I was a full time employee. And a part of what we had to do was come up with a new idea or suggestion. Now, this was all the way back in 2017 that video that I played was actually shared. However, the the interesting part about it was what I shared there, I got a chance to implement a little bit of it in corporate America. But the beauty of entrepreneurship is I get to weave all of those concepts into what it is that I do as a business owner. But of course, this video is not all about me. I also want to give you all some pointers for what you should consider whenever you are either taking a training class to learn something or developing a training program because like I said earlier, I have realized that I have been ahead of the curve for so long. Like I would implement things or I would come up with these ideas way before they were able to be leveraged by those around me, or maybe I didn't have the self-confidence to kind of see them through. It was like, oh, I'm waiting for somebody to validate that this is a good idea. But you don't have that luxury when you own a business. You have to take it, run with it, and apply it, and then adjust. So I wrote some notes as that video was playing. The first thing that I want to say is no matter if you are working or you are an entrepreneur, as much as humanly possible, you have to take advantage of ongoing professional development, whether that be in training, whether that be in something that's set up by your job, or you're someone hitting up YouTube University, researching things on the internet, exploring them, but also with the idea that you are going to apply it. That is absolutely critical. And hello there, Patrick. You got my DM. I was trying to make sure that it was actually working on LinkedIn. Patrick is a seasoned leadership development educator and consultant. And one thing about Patrick is I love his approach. I love how he incorporates all of those leadership development fundamentals in what he does. But Patrick, just to catch you up, because I know you might be late and this is going to be horrible to repurpose. This is going to be horrible, but that's okay. Maybe I don't need to repurpose it. It's been a long time since I live streamed on LinkedIn, so maybe people need the whole thing. But I am doing a walkthrough of my entrepreneurial journey. And one thing that we're doing on the website is a timeline. And as I was doing that timeline, I couldn't start it in 2015 because there was so much more, so many other lessons that came prior to me starting a business that I would be remiss if I didn't do that. But I'm also somebody who needs evidence, if that makes sense. Like I don't want to just say, "Oh, I used to develop all these kinds of things and yada yada yada." No, I didn't want to do that. So, luckily for me, and this is another lesson for everyone that's watching, no matter where you are, I am hoping that you are capturing your journey some way via multimedia, whether that's doing voice notes on your cell phone, taking pictures, video. It doesn't have to be live stream. That just happens to be my jam. You can just pre record it, set the camera down, and capture some of the things that you were doing. In the video that I shared, that was the one that I'm using to encapsulate my training and development experience from 2002 all the way through 2020 for the timeline on my website. And as I was watching that, I started to think about all the lessons and the things that I didn't take advantage of or did not do because maybe I just didn't have the self confidence or whatever the reason was, right? And so the beauty of that is, number one, the instructor or the facilitator recorded it, right? And so now, all these years later, I can look back at it. But then also, it's reinforcing something that I'm talking to a business coach about, and that is constantly being ahead of my time with things that I would recommend or try to implement, even with the soap making. Because with the soap making, when I started doing that in 2015, the industry was very different. It was very secret squirrel. I can't tell you my recipe. I can't show you my techniques and all of that. And I was the complete opposite. Like, I'm showing you because I'm learning it and you can learn it right along with me. So I've always done things in a way where it wasn't the typical way. And as I looked at this video, which was recorded in 2017, I was talking about creating communities of practice, accountability partners, the pre work, the during the training, and then even afterwards, in terms of making sure there's a manager checklist for when the employee returns from this training to make sure you have a way for them to apply those skills. And it wasn't just time that was wasted. And I was talking about hosting webinars, which was completely foreign in the corporate space, right? It was all instructor. What do you mean butts in seats? What do you mean we got to get people in training more? No, they can do it from their desk. And so it was just really eye-opening for me. And so what I'm hoping to share on here are lessons for you. The first lesson that I shared was, number one, take advantage of professional development, whether it's the structured professional development when you are working, or as an entrepreneur, to seek out those opportunities to continue to sharpen the saw. Are there trade associations that you can be a part of? Are there ongoing trainings? Have you created your own professional development plan, whether you're employed or self-employed, like employed by a corporation or on your own? What is your 1 year plan for continuously learning? Not just learning, but applying what you have learned is so, so critical. The second thing is, for when you've signed up for that training, and I've applied this in the virtual event space, I've applied it in Business Tech Lab, I've also applied it in the Lather Lounge. There should be some pre-work, always, even if it's not assigned by the instructor. You want to consider, why am I taking this class? What is it that I need to get out of it for me as the learner to make my career a little bit easier, or what it is that I'm doing easier? Don't just show up to a class and like, oh, it's just all going to come to me at some. No, that is not going to be an effective way to learn. So you want to make sure you do that. And if you're the person that's developing the training, maybe you're tasked with it, you want to make sure that you find various modalities for people to be able to um, get a sense of what they're going to get, whether that be reading material, whether that be video, or maybe even podcasts. There are so many resources out there. You can use any of the AI tools to help you find them, or the Google, not just Google, the Google, to help you find those resources. And you, as the expert, should be able to identify if this really aligns with what you're doing, or create it if it does not exist. And then after the training, have a plan for how you're going to apply some piece of what you've learned throughout the week, throughout the month, and then how you're going to track back to see, was there a change in what I learned, how I learned it, how I'm doing things differently as a result of it, and then reach back out to the person who taught the class to see, is there something else you can do? I firmly believe in accountability partners as you are learning something new. Right now, I am enrolled in eCornell's Women Entrepreneurship program. And we've created our own little group me to make sure that we stay connected as we're going through the assignments, as we are attending or missing the live trainings, to hold each other accountable, because these are rapid fire classes. Every 2 weeks, we're learning something on financing, on marketing, on mission, vision, values, all of those things, which can come at you like a fire hose. But the benefit of having an accountability partner when you are learning something new is you can bounce your ideas off of them. And then, really, because you have that accountability partner, it's going to help hold you accountable if you need that additional support. So, I am really grateful that you all have joined me for this inaugural stream as I try to bring together all of the brands that make up Zakia Ringgold Enterprises. They may seem haphazard as you look on the outside, but as I dig in and do the work and understand how they all came about, from the natural soap making to the live soap school to the virtual events to the business tech lab, they have all actually been very, very intentional. And I am forever grateful for my early days in the corporate space where I had managers who said, "You've got something special. We're going to fertilize that with professional development opportunities, with giving you more challenging assignments," because those early experiences have shaped so much of what I do today. And I would be remiss if I didn't say this. You may not necessarily understand why you are doing this particular thing. Maybe it's just a check mark for what you have to do in your career. I will tell you that every experience in the corporate space prepared me for the entrepreneurial space. My very early job was a help desk where I had to work at a help desk answering questions. And that was when I first did orientation and onboarding, right? So every program that I have now, we leave no learner behind. We make sure that they have help desk and training to go along with whatever it is that we are teaching. And so, all the way from the help desk to the training to the customer service, all of those skills, even though I didn't see it then, I tap into every single one of them now. So some people say, "Oh, it's just a 9 to 5. I'm clocking in." You are doing more than clocking in. And you may not understand exactly why you are experiencing what you are. However, give yourself the opportunity to really, really learn some new things, apply them, and then really, really take it to heart if you decide to move into entrepreneurship or continue to move up the corporate ladder. All of your experiences matter. So that's what I have to share with you all today. I know my Facebook comments weren't coming up, so let me just slide on over there in case I missed you. I don't want to do that. It's not intentional. It is not intentional. Yep, I did. Debbie, hello. Thank you so much for joining. And Lenore, I said hello to you as well. Patrick, Lucy, Senator Bulworth, all of you, thank you so much for joining me. This will become an ongoing series. Not sure what it will be called, but we will be live at least 3 times a week, sharing various tech tools and ways that you can move into the next space that you're trying to get to. I'm Zakia, and I'll talk to you all.